All right. So, tell us who you have.
I go by Lowercase, artist, producer, MC, creative. Just from Scarborough, Toronto, Malvern to be specific, but Scarborough. Yes, sir.
How long have you been making music for?
Making music for, it's about like 8 years. You know what I mean? 8 years, I would say. Yeah, like seriously. I feel like I got into the craft and just trying to figure it out for 10, but me taking it and being like, I want to try to take this as far as I can go. Yeah, like 8 years for sure.
What would you say were some of your inspirations to get into music?
Um, the first artist I ever listened to that got me to be like, what is this? Like I need to get more into whatever this art form is Jay-Z's Black album. My mom had worked at Rogers and she won a competition to get like a free iPod Nano. This one iPod Nanos was fresh. And I remember the iPod Nano had a One Republic record and I think a YouTube album, which was crazy because what the fuck. And yeah, my mom was a huge Jay-Z fan and she had put that on there. And I remember just being a kid, seeing new things. Like iPod Nano was a new thing. And so it's just like you want to always have, as a kid, you want to get that new thing to be like, I got it. You know what I mean? And to flex it with your friends. Hopefully you don't get robbed. You know what I mean? But like for me, I just went through her music and the Black Album, I listened to it. And bro, like just the first song, December 4th, that hit home for me. Like production wise, what he was talking about, you know what I mean? In terms of just growing up with your mother, getting into music, not having your father around, like it just spoke to me on a different level. And I was a kid, so I can't say I knew the details of it, but just production and everything from that song going forward, I was like, what is this? You know what I mean? And then I fell into the actual art form of hip hop and started try to look for everything.
Just touching on that, what were some of the sounds that you remember hearing growing up?
Man, well, my mother, she was huge on Lauryn Hill and the Fugees, so I'll be listening to a ton of Fugees, a ton of Lauryn Hill. And when I was a kid, we used to live with my grandma in Wixon, and she was, real true yachty, you know what I mean? So a lot of Beres Hammond, a lot of Freddie McGregor, Bob Marley, you know what I'm saying? A lot of just the legends, you know what I mean, that have built the groundwork when it comes to reggae music. And then, out here growing up in Toronto when I was a kid, like, I got like, there's a lot of artists that were making their own scene, you know what I mean, out here, especially in Scarborough and, all over the city, you know what I mean? There's a videographer named Face Films and he used to shoot all these different artists in the city, you know what I mean, especially in Scarborough. And so I was, when I was with my dogs on my block, like, you hear Sam G, JG, Honcho Hoodlum, you know what I mean? You would hear Heartless G, like all these guys. And then again, like half my family's from Memphis. So when I go out there, then you're listening to Yo Gotti, Lil Wayne, 3 6 Mafia. And that's when I got into this Memphis music in general, whether it's Gangsta Black or Tommy Wright the Third, or just like all these different artists, you know what I mean? So the sounds for me have always been so wide, you know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big.
Yeah, huge, bro, huge. I remember growing up, I was a kid, I was with my uncle and my 2 cousins, and I remember one of the first times I ever even heard 3 6 Mafia was Who Run It, this record that I'm sure you guys have heard it, like Who Run It? Dun, dun, who run it? Yeah, I remember some dude was just driving in a Cutlass to zoom past us, and we was just walking. And my uncle was kind of like, he just heard it for like 3 seconds, and the whole time I walked, he was just like, "Who run it? Who?" And it was just like he just got that energy, and I was like, man, I want to know what this is. You know what I mean? Because, these I look up to my family out there. You know what I mean? They helped me become the man I am today. So, yeah.
Okay, what's the last song you saved in the music?
Say that one more time for me.
What's the last song you saved?
Um, I think it was Destin Conrad. He had just dropped the R&B album, and honestly, I was like I said, like we all of us to some degree come from the era of like you kind of had to find music, whether it's on Dat Piff or Hot New Hip Hop. So for me, it's like I'm always looking for new music, and I listen to everything, and I've heard Dustin Conrad's music prior, and I've heard good things about the album. So I was like, you know what, let me just listen to this. And I listened to it probably 2 nights ago in the shower, and I was like, yeah, this album sounds solid. He has a few records I like. Yeah.
All right. What's the song you used to love singing as a kid that you had no business singing or no?
Hmm. Project Pat, Ooh Nothing. It's a record where he's talking about he's basically saying what you doing with all that ass in your body and stuff, and the chorus goes ooh nothing, and he's like, what you doing, girl, with all that ooh nothing, and it's nuts. When I was just listening to it a couple of days ago, and I was like, man, I remember when I first heard this and I was singing this, you know what I mean, and I didn't need to hear this record, you know what I mean, or even I was gonna say California Love was probably one of the first records I remember hearing as a kid and seeing that music video, and it was on some Mad Max shit. And I was kind of like, yo, what is this, bro? Some demonic stuff, you know what I mean? Even though I didn't even know what demonic stuff was, I grew up in the churches with my grandma and stuff like that, but I just knew this didn't look good, you know what I mean? But I remember me loving the record, but me being terrified of the music video, but yeah, I would say, those two records, or even, man, there's a few Southern records where they're talking super explicit with the sexual stuff. The boys is freaky. Boys is freaka leaks, you know what I mean? But yeah.
Okay. What's the last song you sent to someone?
The last song I sent to someone was probably my song, one of my songs. I'm gonna keep it a bean. I feel like as an artist, you want to consistently try your best to, submit or send your music to people and keep trying to make sure that you're on top of your game. You know what I mean? One of the, especially at this point in this day and age, I mean, not even this day and age and past, present, people are going out selling CDs on the street. And I think the least I can do, people don't buy CDs no more, but at least I can do is send my music to people and be like, yo, what's going on? I know we met, I don't know, at a fair or at an event, but I make music. I'd love for you to check it out. This is who I am. You know what I mean? So I think most definitely it's probably one of my own songs. If it wasn't that, then it was probably I don't know. I be sending my music to a lot of people these days. Yeah.
We're gonna come back to that.
All right, say that.
Yeah. What's the artist that you recently discovered?
His name is Ecstasy. He's from Vancouver, Canada. He's like a punk alternative rock artist. And again, the music I got my range of music is always gonna stay wide, you know what I mean? And I think that his music, he has a few records that I truly have been spinning super crazy actually. It's nuts. I can't even trace. But he's dope. Ecstasy from Vancouver, super dope artist. If I want to say him, then I would say I don't know her name, but the KWN girl. It's and she has a new song, Paint Your Nails. Paint your nails the way I like them. Yeah. With Kalani, and she's macking her, going crazy in the video. Yeah. Going nuts. She was on them times. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, she's dope. She's from UK?
Yeah.
Y'all got some ones, man. I'll give you guys that for sure.
You got some talent?
Yeah, no, definitely. No, for sure. Most definitely.
I'm gonna go back into the artist back. So, as an artist, give me 2 songs that quickly let me know who you are.
I would say Kid Cudi, The Heart of a Lion, and it's between a Jay-Z record or a Ye record or a Lupe record. That's the second one. Um, Phrase Lupe Fiasco. On the Cool album, and I think it's called Gold Watch. Yeah, those two records for sure, for sure. Yeah, for sure. Gold Watch. Yeah, that's a one. That's a one for me. Hmm. That's on the Man on the Moon one, the first one.
Okay, which now actually leads me on to what was the soundtrack to your college years?
So I was not in college or uni. Uh, I took this growing up and trying to figure out life route outside of that stuff. But I think during that time period, it was a bunch of different things. It'd be harder to lie. I think because for me, around the same time that I was supposed to, I guess, go to college, that's when me and my parents, I just had a dispute with them, and I wasn't living at my crib no more, so I was just couch hopping. So it was a lot of Kid Cudi music, just to as an artist that I feel like I resonated with. You know what I mean? In terms of speaking about emotions in a raw form. You know what I mean? I think that he was the one for me. In terms of artists growing up like that, he helped me stay sane in a sense. You know what I mean? Like he helped me stay sane. I think when I was just on road, you know, with some certain friends trying to make money, it was a lot of Dipset, it was a lot of Jay-Z. You know what I mean? And it's funny. I think like to some degree, you kind of want to connect certain songs with a certain emotions. And I feel like a lot of when I was on road trying to make my money, it was a lot of Get Money music, whether it's Fabulous, Soul Tapes, or you know Jay-Z, like I said, the Blueprint one, and yeah, Blueprint one for the most part. And then yeah, like just me just being a geek. The Cool, Lupe Fiasco was the Cool, had me in a headlock. You know what I mean? That those two albums. I think Kid Cudi's Man on the Moon 1 and 2, and The Cool and Graduation, uh, and Jay-Z's, I mean, a lot of Jay-Z album songs had me in a headlock throughout that time period of my life.
I feel like Kid Cudi, Kanye West, they kind of like ushered in this new sound of like different type of hip hop.
Yeah, for sure. It's go ahead.
Especially like I feel like a lot of people, like even for me, like Kid Cudi, like was one of the albums I listened to a lot, like
Yeah,
through college years.
yeah,
And I think because it is such a like, it's such a kind of age of discovery. For you, like
yes,
you're growing up and stuff like that. So it just pairs well with like that age that you're at, where you're kind of like, you know, it's college. And
Yeah,
stuff like that. Like,
for sure.
Black, we don't like and stuff like that. Like,
Facts.
like, then having this kind of more experimental side of hip hop, like it's,
Yeah,
it's kind of dope.
yeah, man. I think Kid Cudi and Kanye West to some degree, for predominantly for me, Kid Cudi is just like such a coming of age artist. You know what I mean? He talks about just going through the process of being a human being and being a man in this life, dealing with your emotions and speaking on those emotions that, you know, in hip hop, there's so much bravado. You know what I mean? I feel like growing up listening to Jay-Z, I related to certain Jay-Z records, but I can't say I felt a deep connection with Jay-Z's music. You know what I mean? That was the thing. I just loved the way he rapped. I felt like I was like, bro, this guy's a genius when it comes to putting these words together. But, you know, even Lil Wayne, another genius that put words together, but I never resonated with their story. I think Kid Cudi was an artist that like I resonated with his story so much that it was kind of it's kind of like it was kind of hard to like decline it or act like, because there's obviously the people that, you know, as males we have that bravado and we have that ego, and I think that some certain people, I would try to put his music, Kid Cudi's music, onto them. They're like, I don't want to hear this shit. You know what I mean? Because they're just on that, you know what I mean, that manly shit, and I get it. You know what I mean? But as a person, I guess that tries to be in tune with his emotions, Kid Cudi was a coming of age artist for me, and Kanye, I think, teeters the line of doing both really well. Like he can speak on those emotions, and he can and being real in the moment and coming off very bravado. You know what I mean? So definitely those two for sure.
In your own words, what does music mean to you, or how would you describe your relationship?
For me, I think music is my life. You know what I mean? Art is my life. Let me reword that. Art is my life. But music is the platform and the category of art that I take a lot of my life and I put into. You know what I mean? I think music has, for a lot of artists, changed a lot of people's lives, of course. But I think that, like, man, like, I just feel like music is, like, you know, therapeutic, obviously. And I think music is just the ability to tell the stories that many won't see, or tell the stories that many won't understand, because maybe either they're not physically there, or they just don't, or they're oblivious, or they're ignorant. You know what I mean? I think music is just books. You know what I mean? Music are books that are basically now given to the people in a form that is a lot more digestible for people to indulge in and to, you know, acknowledge, you know. And I think that, I mean, you never asked this. I think that's kind of what kind of hurts me about music. Some of the music today is like, we're now going into a realm where a lot of the books, if we're going to put albums as books, they're books about a lot of nothing. You know what I mean? It's not enough about who you are as an artist, or who, you know, what you represent, or what your morals or values are. You know what I mean? Because I think a lot of music helps a lot of us grow into being the human beings and men and women that we are. And I think that as we stray further away from creating vibes and good, I don't know, vibes, because a lot of people love, like, that's the entry, like, that's the kind of like the word that sticks a lot. It's like, yo, I just love the vibe. And it's like, I agree with that. I think vibes are important for music, but I also feel like, you know, we are kind of straying away from music that kind of help people become, you know, real human beings. You know what I mean? And, you know, I think me as an artist, that's one of my goals, is to try to make human music to help him, like, not help human beings, hopefully it does, but to speak from a human being standpoint. Yes, sir.
And as as an artist,
Yeah.
what are your opinions on the Toronto music scene? Or how do you feel about the Toronto music scene?
I think it's funny. I think Toronto had a super, super dynamic music scene when I was a kid, but we had legitimately no infrastructure. You know what I mean? Like, not a pinch of infrastructure, especially when it comes to hip hop, rap music, because I think that Canada is a country that wants to portray a certain look that certain hip hop and rap at that time they didn't want to necessarily give highlight to. You know, especially when you have America being the the president and the leader of, like, what pop culture and hip hop culture and urban culture is. You know what I mean? So I think that you know, I think that it was hard in the beginning, but now it's habit. It's still hard now because we're building the infrastructure now. Because now that the people, we've begotten so much people into this country. You know what I mean? People that look like me, people that look like you, and we have so much stories to tell. And now it's kind of like there's so much stories to tell, and it's kind of hard for this country to act like there isn't. You know what I mean? Especially when it comes to the form of hip hop and the form of rap. So now I feel like they're kind of trying their best to build infrastructure, but I just feel like the infrastructure is still very lacking. And there's a lot of talented artists out here, whether it's, you know, people from Scarborough, Malvern, where I'm from, or, you know, West End or Ajax, Pickering. You know, there's so much great artists, but it's just like, we just don't have the right tools and the, you know, the funding and, you know, acknowledgement pushed into it to birth what can be really a new, like, just a renaissance. You know what I mean? Because to some degree, like, we do have the Drakes and the Weekends, and I think those two are the biggest artists in the world. You know what I mean? Like, hands down. It's actually not really comparison. You know what I mean? You can put Kendrick Lamar in that argument now, but it's just like, for the last, like, decade, those two guys had ran the way, where music, how, like, the charts and what peak music is. And I think that there are only two people in a country of millions of people. You know what I mean? And those are the people that figured out a way to break out of here. But it's just like, if this country gave us a launch pad to break out of here in general, then I just think that we would have a lot more opportunities to see a lot of stars. Like in the UK, like, I think the UK has kind of had to be forced to acknowledge the rap and grime and, you know, the scene there. And you guys consistently keep birthing stars. You know what I mean? And I think with the lack of infrastructure here, it's just hard to birth stars. You know, there's a lot of great talent here, but to birth a star. It's just like it's a community effort, and I think we just lack the infrastructure to do that. Yeah.
I'm gonna ask you one more.
No
It's
worries.
a quick one.
Yeah.
Give me 2 songs of yours
Mm.
that people have to listen to.
That people have to listen to. Oh man. Have to listen to. I think that I think there's 2 songs that are descriptive of that speaks on my life and my experiences. I think So It Goes is one record where it speaks on my experiences in my life and my upbringing. And I think that another song is Zeitgeist that I think speaks on that as well, but on a lighter note and a more better feeling note. But if I were to add a third one, just in terms of just like a good record that I think a lot of people would hear, and it's just like, I want to, like, people probably hear and be like, yo, this is the record. It's probably Run right now. The song I have called Run on my Pilot Episode album. And all these songs are on my album called The Pilot Episode. And I think just that album in general, if you're just like, you want to get a better understanding of who I am as an artist, I think that album is like super defining in terms of who I am as an artist. For sure. Dope. No, man, for sure. For sure.